It's late. You can't stop thinking about something, a decision, a conversation, a feeling that you can't name. So you open ChatGPT and you type it out, and it answers. It's calm, warm, certain, and for a minute, you can breathe again. So maybe you ask again, a slightly different question, a slightly better answer, and again, and again. And somewhere in there, without noticing, you stopped trying to figure out what you think and started waiting to be told. Here's the question I want you to sit with. When you close the app, do you actually feel steadier, or do you just feel answered until the next wave hits and then you reach for it again? Because there's nothing wrong with the tool. The problem isn't that you asked AI, it's what your brain is quietly learning every time that you do, that you can't sit with not knowing, even for a minute. And that one lesson, repeated enough times, is the thing that keeps anxiety running. Today, I'm going to show you the difference between using AI to think and using it to escape. One makes you sharper, and the other makes you dependent. And once you can feel the difference in your own body, you won't reach for your phone the same way again. That pattern I just described, reaching for an answer every time the discomfort spikes, has a name. In psychology, it's called excessive reassurance seeking. Asking again and again for confirmation that things are going to be okay, even though you already got the answer, because the relief never lasts. You know what this looks like? It's asking your partner, "Are you sure you're not mad at me?" for the third time. It's Googling your symptoms at midnight after your doctor already told you that you're fine. It's rereading the email you sent to make sure it didn't sound wrong. The answer doesn't change, but the anxiety keeps asking the question. And this is incredibly well documented. A 2019 study in the Journal of Anxiety Disorders looked at more than 700 people with anxiety and OCD, and this pattern showed up across all of them. It even shaped how well people responded to treatment. The cycle goes something like this. You feel uncertain about something. It's uncomfortable. So you seek reassurance to make the discomfort go away. And it works briefly. But you never practiced tolerating the uncertainty. So the next time it shows up, it feels just as bad, and you ask again, and the loop tightens. Over time, two things happen. One, your tolerance for uncertainty goes down because you never practiced it. And two, your need for reassurance goes up. The dose stops working. So you need more of it, more often. Now, none of this is new. Therapists have worked with this pattern for decades. What's new is that you now have a reassurance source that never gets tired, never gets annoyed, never says, "You already asked me that," and is available 24 hours a day. Most people don't know this about how these systems work. There's a term in AI research called sycophancy, the tendency of a chatbot to agree with you instead of giving you the most accurate or balanced answer. And it isn't just an occasional glitch. These systems are rewarded for producing responses people experience as helpful. But when you're anxious, the answer that feels most helpful is often the one that reassures you. For a while, that was just an observation. Now, it's actually been measured. In March of this year, researchers published a study in the journal Science that tested 11 leading AI models, and the models were substantially more sycophantic than actual people responding to the same situations, roughly 49% more, by the study's measure. But this is the part that should stop you. In their experiments, people actually preferred the sycophantic version. They trusted it more. They were more likely to come back to it for advice. The design that's worst for an anxious brain is exactly the one an anxious brain will choose. Think about what that means for someone with anxiety. A friend might eventually say, "I think you're overthinking this." A therapist will gently push you to sit with the discomfort instead of resolving it. A chatbot doesn't get tired of the question. And if one answer doesn't give you enough relief, you can keep rephrasing it until you find one that does. And this isn't rare. In a nationally representative survey published this year in JAMA Pediatrics, about 1 in 5 young people ages 12 to 21, said they'd used an AI chatbot for mental health advice. Most had never told anyone, so some of these loops may be running privately, over and over, with nobody around to notice the pattern. And that's the line to watch. There's a difference between using AI to think something through and using it to make a feeling go away. We'll come back to that. But real quick, I put the original 5 lies from my anxiety video into a free field guide with the clinical response to each one. It's linked in the description because what comes next is the AI era version of one of anxiety's oldest lies. I've talked before about the lies anxiety tells you. Those patterns are ancient. They're part of how the anxious brain has always worked. But AI has given one of those lies a new level of power. And it's this: I need the answer right now. That thought, I can't sit with this, I need it resolved immediately, is what psychologists call intolerance of uncertainty. And it's one of the strongest predictors of chronic worry that we have. Before AI, this lie had natural limits. A friend might not pick up the phone. Google made you sift through 10 conflicting answers. Your partner would eventually say, "We've talked about this." There was some friction. And without anyone designing it as treatment, that friction sometimes did something useful. It slowed the reassurance down. It gave you a little practice at sitting with not knowing. This isn't just my read on it. This spring, psychiatry researchers at Stanford published a framework in NPJ Digital Medicine making exactly this argument. Chatbots lack the natural social friction, the fatigue, the pushback, the gentle, "we've been over this," that normally interrupts a reassurance cycle. And every time you take the instant answer, you're teaching your brain 3 things. The uncertainty was intolerable, you couldn't have handled it, you needed to be rescued. But you didn't need the rescue. You never did. Each time you reach for it, though, you believe it a little more. It's like paying someone to carry the weights every time you go to the gym. You leave feeling relieved, but you also never get stronger. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying AI is bad, and I'm not telling you to delete ChatGPT. I've used it myself for research, for brainstorming, for drafting, and the evidence genuinely cuts both ways. A meta-analysis published this year pooled almost 40 clinical trials and found that chatbots built specifically for mental health support can genuinely reduce anxiety symptoms. The effects are modest, but they're real. So the tool isn't the problem. The job that you give it is. Using AI to organize your thinking about a project is one thing. Using it repeatedly to make uncertainty disappear is another. One is a productivity tool. The other can become a reassurance machine. So try this instead. When you open the chatbot, ask yourself, am I trying to learn something new? Or am I asking a question I've basically already answered because I want the feeling to go away? Have I already gotten a reasonable answer? Is there any new information? Would another answer change what I do or just change how I feel for a few minutes? Because if it's comfort you're after, it may be costing you something you can't see, which is your ability to tolerate discomfort on your own. And that ability is one of the most important skills you can build for managing anxiety long term. If this isn't something you do occasionally, but a cycle that runs your day, it's worth taking seriously. And it's very treatable. Cognitive behavioral therapy can directly target reassurance seeking and intolerance of uncertainty, and a therapist can help you practice responding differently in a way that's structured, gradual, and sustainable. So here's your experiment. The next time you're anxious and you reach for a chatbot or Google or a friend, ask yourself whether the answer can safely wait. And if it can, don't reach for it right away. Not forever, just wait 20 minutes. Set a timer. Sit with the uncertainty. Notice the urge. Notice what the anxiety says will happen if you don't get the answer right away. And then notice what actually happens. Maybe the discomfort rises, it peaks, and it starts to come down on its own. Maybe it's still there when the timer ends. Either way, something important happened. You practiced having uncertainty without immediately obeying it. You didn't prove that everything would be okay. You proved that you could tolerate not knowing yet. That 20 minutes of practice built something that another reassuring answer can't. So tell me in the comments, which reassurance source do you reach for first? Is it a chatbot, the search bar, or another person? And if this hit home, you're going to want to watch this one next, where I break down 5 other lies anxiety tells you and the clinical response to each one, including the one that connects directly to what we covered today. I'm Dr. Tab Shamsi. I post new videos on this channel about anxiety, focus, and how your brain actually works. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.